You are listening to the Cocoa Blend Podcast. Our podcast aims to shatter the misconception that Black parents cannot co-parent without drama. A podcast for moms of faith who are tired of unnecessary conflicts, seeking a positive shift, and eager to embrace harmonious co-parenting in their blended family. In other words, moms who just want to co-parent without the drama. I am your host, Jamie Newton-Knight, motherhood mastery mentor and co-parenting coach. Join us as we navigate through insightful conversations and empowering stories, redefining the norms and celebrating the strength of united co-parenting in the Black community. So turn on that GPS and let's navigate the blend. Hello and welcome back to the Cocoa Blend Podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you are an avid listener and you've been here rocking with me for the past couple episodes, welcome back. I'm so glad to have you here. My name is Jamie Newton-Knight and I am the host of the Cocoa Blend Podcast and the founder of Blended Black Family. Listen, in this episode, we're going to continue on our road trip and we are now going to cover the N in the blend roadmap. So I talked about the roadmap in the previous episodes. If you did not hear them, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the other episodes, take a listen. You got to start at the first one to understand what part of the road trip we're on. You don't want to jump on halfway or when we're already at the end. You need to know the journey. You got to know the journey. So you got to start at the beginning. So if you did not listen, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and take a listen. And then come on back here and listen to this episode. So we are talking about the N in the roadmap. And the N, some of y'all not gonna like the N. It's the dreaded N word, negotiate. Negotiate or compromise. Oh my goodness, girl. Who wants to do that? Who wants to negotiate? Who wants to compromise? I just want it my way. Why can't it just be what I said? Because that's not how co-parenting works. It's not about you. So yes, we are going to be talking about negotiating. So with negotiating, you work on the things that we can actually change. A little give, a little take goes a long way rather than you just wanting it all your way. Think about the things that you have not been able to budge on. Time, maybe having every other weekend, a financial decision in terms of like a price, like, okay, let's do X amount every week or let's do X amount every 2 weeks. Think about something that you've not been able to budge on. Can those things be compromised? I'm not telling you to compromise them if you don't need to or if you can't because you know exactly who you're dealing with. But think about whether they can be compromised. And if they can, then you should take compromising or being able to negotiate puts you in a place of power, right? A position of power when you learn the art of compromise. So you put yourself in that space and you're able to communicate, hey, listen, why don't we do this? Or maybe instead of it being this amount, let's make it that amount. Or instead of you having every other weekend, let's pick the last weekend of the month or something like that. Negotiating, compromising goes a long way. It doesn't stop all the arguments, but it definitely helps to lessen a lot of those arguments. So think about it. Think about negotiating. Think about the compromise. And now you're going to hear a story from one of my guests who is navigating or who has navigated negotiating and the art of compromise and being able to communicate. So what I want you to do is sit back, relax, get a pen, get paper. If you feel like you're going to need to start taking some notes, strap your seatbelt on because this is a road trip and we got to be safe. And when you're riding in cars and you're on a road trip, you have to take all the safety precautions. And the first precaution is to strap on your seatbelt. So I'm going to put your seatbelt on, strap it up, let's go. And you're going to get ready for the fourth stop on the blend roadmap, which is negotiate. I hope you enjoy the listen. God bless. Are you ready to retreat Then get those passports ready. If you're a mom who's just completely overwhelmed from wearing all the hats, doing all the things, and being everything to everyone, then this is the retreat for you. Now's the time to release the supermom syndrome and practice some guiltless self-care. Join us Mother's Day weekend, May 10th through the 13th, for the Motherhood Mastery Rest Retreat. Go to thecocoblend.com/momsretreat for more details. Hello and welcome back to another episode. We have a phenomenal guest who is my sis and my accountability partner. We be checking in with each other. I'm so glad to have her here as a guest. So I just want to welcome everybody. I'm glad to have her as a guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself. So go ahead, B, introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you inviting me on this platform. I don't think that I've ever been asked to share the story of how my daughter's father and I met, or that dynamic. So this is going to be really interesting for me. But my name is Bernadette Jackson. I am a transparent truth teller. I am a mom to a beautiful 16-year-old. I grew up in a multi-generational Jamaican home, so in Brooklyn. So, there's that dynamic of Brooklyn, New York, and Jamaica. You know what it is. If you know, you know. And I am just excited to be here.
Thank you so much, girl. Yes. Listen, you can take the mama out Jamaica, but you cannot take the Jamaica out the mama. It's just like the Southern mama. You can take them out the South, but you cannot take the South out of them. They are going to get you all the way together, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And don't care about the American politics of it all, right? They will knock you out in public, in the streets, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. Sharing your intro. Listen, y'all, let me tell you a little bit more about B, because, she was being real subtle. She is a great accountability partner, and she gets these edges laid. And I don't mean with like gel. I mean, like, she will snatch my edges when she like, Jamie, get it together, girl. Okay. So she is an amazing accountability partner and friend and sis to have. I'm so glad, again, like I said, that she is here. So Bernadette, let's talk a little bit about what your struggles were and how you got through them in this co-parenting journey.
Okay. I think the number one struggle that I had with my daughter's father was communication. There really wasn't very much of it in the beginning. And when we did have communication, a lot of times it was negative, it was volatile, it was a lot of, manipulation and control. And so, sometimes we would go periods without speaking to each other, or we would have periods where we were being passive aggressive, all of the things. And so I think that what I started to do that really helped the communication was to be radically honest about how the communication or lack thereof was affecting our daughter. And I felt like that finally was able to be a catalyst almost to some change. And some is the key word there.
You like, I can only do what I can, like, I can only control what happens on this side, right? I can only control myself and how I react. Yes, some change. But listen, some change, and especially in this dynamic of co-parenting and blended families, some change is better than no change, because there are people who are really, really struggling. But I'm glad that you said this is where we were, and this is where we are now, and you were able to get to a different place simply based on like changed habits. Like, I'm not gonna keep doing the same thing. We're not. So I want to talk a little bit about your story. I want you to share your story with the listeners, and I'm gonna try to stay very quiet. You might hear a church clap or amen. You could just ignore me though. So share, please.
Okay, my story. So I met my daughter's father when I was 24, and I was living on my own in Boston. And I was a part of this church, and it was a really small church community. And sometimes when you're in a church, that the church members are very overly invested sometimes in younger people and what their life is like and whether or not they're interested in a husband and all the things. So I had a couple of friends in the church who were older people, and they had connections to singles that were in other areas. So one time we were doing an event, and I want to say maybe it was something like an international night where all of the different countries that were represented in the church were coming together. They had their own tables, they had their own food, their flags, and all the things. And we were just like, enjoying each other's company, like a little, Christian fete. And so my daughter's father was there with a friend of his, and their table was Trinidad and Tobago, and mine was Jamaica. So we were butted up next to each other. Of course, like there was some healthy, bacchanal. There was some healthy, competition back and forth about like whose country was better and all of that. And it was just like, all fun and games. And we were having some deeper conversation about some stuff as well, probably like something having to do with the Bible or whatever it is. What I remember though about him was that he was really good friends with somebody who I trusted. And this person was like, like a church uncle to me. And he was someone who was always looking out for me, always made sure that I was good. And so for me, in my mind, any of his friends were also good people. So I was pretty open to speaking with him, to exchanging phone numbers, to just like, having a leisurely conversation about, myself, where I'm from, what I'm interested in, and all of that. And I don't think at the time that I was thinking that it was going to lead anywhere, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll just meet a new friend who lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it was just like a cool conversation at first. And then as we started to talk on the phone, the conversations became more personal about like, what do I like? What am I into? What work am I doing? I was 24 at the time. So, like I was out of college. I was doing work, but I wasn't doing the kind of work I wanted to do. So I definitely shared with him, like what some of my passions were and whatnot. He shared with me that he was a business owner, that he had a martial arts studio, and that he was doing a lot of work with kids. He was getting a lot of contracts with the city and all of that, and he definitely was interested in expanding his staff. So I was interested in the work that he was doing because I don't think I had ever met anyone who had their own business and that was successful at it. So we did a lot of talking there, and of course in true Bernadette fashion, like there would be some problems that he had, and I was like, oh well, if you try this and that might work. I feel like I've seen this happen before, and this may be a good look for you and whatnot. So like just with having conversations like that, and him thinking that I was really easy to talk to, and mature for my age and whatnot, the relationship, or conversations rather, blossomed into something romantic. And it wasn't until we got deeper into conversation about things that I realized that he was 11 years older than me. And let me tell you, when I was 24 and this man told me that he was 35, I was shooketh, okay? Because I was like, I don't know. I really don't know about that because like 35, like you in a whole nother decade, buddy. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna converse? What are we gonna talk about? I was scared. All right. Like I can definitely say that I was scared. But I had to talk myself off of the ledge because prior to knowing that he was 35, we were having great conversations. It was only after I realized that I started to think like, oh, maybe I'm not mature enough. Maybe I'm not going to have anything in common with him and all of that stuff. But that wasn't the case. So, and I think I also liked the fact that he was like secure, that he was mature, and that he was able to teach me things. It was a lot of conversations that we had where I was always learning something from him, always getting like some background information about what was going on behind the scenes in his business. And it was always nice to just be in on those kinds of conversations. So I just felt like, in terms of intellectual intimacy, like we had it in spades. And that was something that that I valued in a partner, even from when I was younger. So it was just like, the dynamic was always there in terms of us being able to talk about anything. So when we decided that we were going to be an item, I think we were dating now maybe a couple of months, and it was long distance. I had that point had gone back to New York because it wasn't really working out for me in Boston. And, because we were both Adventists, we would bring in the Sabbath together on Friday nights. He would be singing in his like very bad, crookedy Trinidadian voice or whatever, the hymns from back in 1979. And I would just laugh along and sing because I'm like, okay, like at least, he wants to have, Jesus at the center of our relationship. And that was also important to me. And it was something that I had not experienced before. So, we are doing a lot of that, a lot of him asking me, like, what is my next move? Like, what is it that I'm looking to do now that I'm back in New York? And me just saying, like, I really didn't know. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I didn't know whether or not I was going to try to go back to school. I wasn't really I guess I was unclear about what my next move was going to be. And so he suggested that I come to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, work with him in his business, and we really try to take our relationship to the next level. And it was the first time that I had ever been asked to live with somebody. And of course, I was scared about that because I'm like, I'm going to a state where I only know you. And this is going to be new for me. I don't have my own supports there, and there were a bunch of other things that really were an advantage to him that I didn't realize at the time were going to be to my detriment. So I decided to do it. I was like young, and I'm like, YOLO, let's go ahead. What's the worst that could happen? I moved up there, I packed all my bags. I think it was like a really quick turnaround as well. I think we had a conversation in the morning. By the evening, I was all packed up to go. By the time my mom came back from work, she seen all my bags packed and was wondering what I was doing, where I was going. And I was like, yeah, so I had a conversation with my boyfriend, and we decided that I'm going to be moving to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so I just wanted to let you know that bye, I love you, like I'm going to be leaving on the first thing smoking tomorrow morning. So, let's enjoy tonight because I'm gone. And like literally it was something like that. Okay. And in hindsight now, I could really say to myself, girl, what was you thinking? What were you like? Why did you do that so fast and like that? Like that was really crazy. But again, 24. So, went up there, and the thing that I was met with, and I will never forget this. He walked into his house. The house was filthy. Okay. Filthy, trash all over the place. Like it had never been cleaned. Dishes in the sink, bed unmade. Like it was crazy. And what he said to me was that I wanted you to see how I really live because I don't want to hide anything from you. And in hindsight, I can say that that was high level manipulation. Okay. Obviously, you didn't clean because you didn't think you had to, because I was 24 and you didn't think you needed to put a best foot forward. So you decided you was going to bring me into a situation like this, knowing that I'm coming from my mom's home and this is the first time that I'm moving somewhere and this is the welcome that I get. So like in hindsight, there's all of these things. But at 24, I was like, oh, okay, I guess like, he really just values like wanting to be authentic and letting me see who he really is. All right, I could appreciate that, but I came in and immediately went into wife mode, cleaned everything up because it's like, I cannot live like this. Went and got the vacuum, did the dishes, did all of the things, and made this house a home like instantly. And so just doing that and us being in the same place together, living under the same roof, like we were husband and wife, it was really easy for me to feel like we were husband and wife, even though I didn't have the title. And what ended up happening is that soon thereafter, I was pregnant, and I didn't even know that I was pregnant. He was the one who had to tell me that I was pregnant. He was like, oh, I'm seeing your attitude lately is on 10, and you're a little bit more ornery than you usually are. And he asked me this question. I have never heard this asked before. And like since then, I realized that it is a Trinidadian thing or West Indian thing. He was like, girl, you breed up. And I was like, breed up? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? He was like, you're pregnant. And I'm like, oh, I don't think so. Like, I don't know, So I went and did the pregnancy test, and sure enough, he was absolutely right. I was indeed pregnant. And when I found out that I was pregnant, we were having problems. I had realized that he was still having relations with his son's mom, and that there was another woman that was in the works, that he was trying to get to know. I didn't like the kind of relationship that it seemed like they were building, and he wasn't really that forthright with information about like who she was and like what his intentions were. So it was making me really uncomfortable. And it was honestly a really bad situation that I was in, because I said before that I didn't have any support system in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My daughter's father was the only person that I knew. I didn't drive out there, so he drove me everywhere. I was working in his business, so whatever money I was making was coming from him. Like, there was too many things that he had control over, and I really didn't have autonomy in that situation. And so I could have been thrown out on the street and been homeless if he was, upset about something and decided that that was the route that he was going to take. There was too many things that were outside of my control that I had given up when I decided to move to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania so swiftly without thinking about what that could mean for me. And so when I found out that I was pregnant, my first thought was that, oh, I'm going to get an abortion, because no. And I really thought that, especially since I had not wanted to be a parent, I had always said that I wanted to be the cool auntie. I wanted to come in and out of like, my godchildren's and my nieces and nephews' life. I wanted to like breeze in. Oh, yeah, I just came from Paris. I'm just coming to see you guys. Come, let's go out. And then I'm going to give you back to your parents. Like, that is literally how I envisioned my life to be. And so when I had decided that I was going to get an abortion, I had actually went to the clinic. I had paid the money. My mom was there. They had decided that they were going to do a exam to see how far along I was. And when I found out that I was 13 weeks pregnant and like freshly into my second trimester, I said, pause, hold on. Like, I didn't realize, okay, that I was this far along. Nope, I can't do this no more. Like, I am going to have to trust the Lord that He is going to have to bring me through this, regardless of who my daughter's father is and how scared I am of being a mom and what this could mean and all of that stuff. And I just decided right there in that moment that I wasn't going to do it. They refunded me the money. I left. I cried hysterically, because I knew that this was going to be a completely different dynamic in my life. I wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be. And I was really afraid that I wasn't going to be able to like step up to the plate of being a mom. So my pregnancy was kind of lonely. I want to say for maybe the first like 5 months that I was in Pennsylvania. I hadn't gone to any doctor's appointments. I hadn't done any checkups or anything. I thought that by then I would feel my daughter kicking something. So because I didn't feel anything at all, I had secretly feared that I had a stillborn. And for the longest time, I feel like I just had like this baseline feeling that something was wrong with my pregnancy. But maybe around, I don't know, maybe like 5.5 months or something like that, my mom said, okay, girl, it's time for you to come home now. Like, get back to New York immediately. And I was like, okay. And I packed my bags in similar fashion to the way I left. And I was like, all right, yeah, my mom said I have to come home now. Okay, bye. I'm gone. I purchased a ticket, with his money, because his money was my money while we were together. And I was like, drive me to the airport because I'm out of here. And I left and I went back to New York. My mom immediately took me to her hospital, got me set up with insurance, signed me up for appointments and stuff like that. And my first appointment, the doctor said, we're going to check for the baby's heartbeat. And when they checked for the baby's heartbeat and I was able to finally hear that my baby was alive, I cried so hard, because I realized that I was holding my breath all this time thinking that my baby wasn't alive. And so to finally have the evidence that I was in fact carrying a healthy child, I was like, okay, like I can breathe again now. So from there, I went to my appointments religiously, did all of the things that they asked me to do. Fast forward to the week before my daughter was supposed to be born. She was supposed to be a Valentine's Day baby. I was like, oh, this will be nice. Okay. But a week before, little girl was like, no, I'm done. All right. I've baked enough. I'm coming out. And went into distress during that appointment. And immediately they were like, okay, we're taking you upstairs. We're about to go into labor and delivery because this thing is happening. I was like, oh, okay, wait, no, because I wasn't ready for this. I thought I was gonna have one more week to get my mind and myself together. Now you over here talking about this is happening now. I don't think so. But they were like, well, you're gonna have to think so because this is happening immediately. And it was just so crazy. Like, I mean, I was scared and all of the things, but she came out, she was healthy. I don't think that I was in labor for very long. And I had a really great like labor story because it happened in the hospital where my mom worked. Everybody was excited about me having a baby. If they felt like it was their baby too, they knew who I was. And so, like, they really just rallied around me to make sure that I had the best experience. And I thank God now that my mom put her foot down and said, no, you're going to have the baby at my hospital instead of my mommy's where I wanted to have it. And because I feel like I would not have had the level of care that I did if I had gone someplace else. And so when I saw my baby for the first time, I realized like, wow, like everything is changed. But what I can say about just parenting my daughter is that she is my most earnest prayer personified. The entire time that she was in my womb, I prayed very specifically about who I wanted her to be, how I wanted her to show up, what kind of parent I wanted to be, what kind of experiences I wanted her to have, and all of that. And I just realized that as she got older, like she was teaching me more and more about unconditional love, about like how to have relationships with people when they sometimes disappoint you, and how do you deal with that on the other side of it in a loving way without freezing them out, or without like teaching them relational skills that are going to end up being negative when they grow up. Like, she taught me so much about myself, about coming out of my shell, because I was very guarded and reserved before her, and she was just so open and curious about the world and just wanted to talk to everyone, and like be around everything and explore all of the stuff. And because I didn't want to impose my like anxious personality on her, I just allowed her to explore, and just like cautiously behind her, like, okay, let's be careful, hold on, wait a minute, like all of that. But like, she just taught me how to be freer in who I was and how I showed up. And so I want to say maybe the first year of my daughter's life, she probably saw her father once. And after I had given birth, he did come to the hospital when I gave birth and whatnot. He saw her shortly after she was born, and then the next time he saw her, she may have been like, I don't know, like 6 to 8 months old, and I had gone up there to where he lived in Pittsburgh. And after about a year of her being alive, my daughter's father moved back to Tobago. And so that's where he's been ever since. And so she doesn't remember anything about him. And for the longest time when he was down there, he didn't really communicate at all with us. There was a lot of anger on his part, especially when I moved on into other relationships. And so there was threats that were made, because he's a martial artist, a 6th degree black belt, who has like, trained for combat, who has also won championships, who has had to register his hands as weapons. I took those threats seriously. And so whenever he would tell me that, oh, he was about to come to New York and hide someplace and like catch me when I'm out with someone, and take my daughter and take her back to Tobago, where I had no idea where she would be and I'd never see her again, I took those threats seriously. And so, because I didn't want any of that to happen, what I did was I went to court and I asked them for full and legal custody of my daughter. And I shared a lot of the things that I had gone through with him in terms of, like, him being controlling, manipulation, some abuse and whatnot. And I was granted what I requested. So I have full and legal custody of my daughter. Even now, I don't have to rely on my daughter's father for any consent before I do anything with my child. I can just like live with her and do what I need to do, go wherever I need to go without any restrictions. And so that angered him because whatever little control he thought that he would have was gone now that the courts had granted me full and legal custody. And so, because he was upset about that, he decided not to speak to me for like something like 3 years. And by the time he came back around, my daughter was maybe around 4, and he was wanting like phone calls with her and whatnot. So we had gone back to court to set that up so that it was on the record. And he was doing it for some time. And then, of course, he fell off. And then he was gone for a number of years and then came back and wanted to know how Jalen was doing and just was seemed interested in the moment, but not so much so where his behavior changed. And so it was just a revolving door of him leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back. And in that time, my daughter was in the middle of it. And I really did not like her having to deal with her father being here for a couple of months and then falling off when she got used to speaking with him, and then coming back after a couple of years and wanting to pick up where he left off and then leaving again because she's not as receptive to conversations as she gets older with someone who is not consistent. And so it was just really hard having to deal with this dynamic for the last almost 16 years now. And even though it's been hard for me and it's been hard for my daughter, I've tried to keep the lines of communication open. So, regardless of the fact that he is inconsistent, anytime he reaches out about, like what's going on with her, how is she doing, and whatnot, I'm always receptive to conversation. I answer his questions. I give pictures every now and then so that he can see what's going on. Whenever she has milestones, I share them with him and whatnot, because I don't ever want him to be able to say that I kept him away from his daughter. I want for my daughter to grow up realizing that I have tried everything that I could possibly try for her to be able to have the relationship with him if he was going to be consistent, if he was going to keep his word. And so whenever she gets older and she realizes that I didn't have the relationship with my father that I wanted to have, she'll realize that it was not because I kept her from him. And he could never say that as well. So I have just tried to um I guess to be the middleman between them sometimes. I try to encourage my daughter to have conversations with him. I also let him know that, this is the reason why she is reluctant to talk to you. We've gone down this road many times before, and um, you haven't been consistent, and you also haven't kept your word. And because I understand what he's like when he wants to pursue a relationship with someone, whether it's business or personal, I know that he's capable of being consistent and staying the course and actually like showing up, for a person. And he has chosen not to do that with my daughter. And it has been heartbreaking for me, more so now as she gets older than when she was younger, because she was asking less questions about it and it was affecting her less. But now it's just like, it's something that I can't control. There isn't anything that I can do about it. And it hurts me even more because there really isn't a solution that I have. What I've done and what I continue to do is all that I have control over. Now it's up to my daughter's father to do the rest. So it's been a journey. It's one that I stay hopeful about, but at this point I don't have any expectations around what the relationship will be or how he will step up in the future, if at all. And so I just continue to show up for my daughter. I continue to surround her with people who love her. I continue to show her that there are family dynamics out there just like us, and it doesn't make her any less deserving. And she has a community of supporters really that show her what fatherly love is like. And so that's what I have control over, and that's what I've made sure that she has as well.
Wow. It's so crazy. I'm sitting as I'm listening to your story. I'm like, why haven't we ever talked about this?
I
Right?
know.
Like, if when we are done on the side on the weekend,
Hmm.
because we chat all the time, I'm gonna be like, Bernadette, listen here, girl. You want to know how much our stories parallel?
Mm.
But so thinking about the fact that you were in a space and you what was funny to me was when you were like, my mom said I gotta come home, so I'm going home.
Yeah,
It was just like you
just
reverted
like,
back to like your kid,
uh-huh.
like you reverting back to being a child because your mom called. Is like, my mommy said I gotta come home now, so
Hmm.
I'm out. And you were
Hmm.
like, I'm leaving. But it was good for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure your mother had that intuition too. Like, something's up with my daughter. I need her to come home. Not tomorrow. I needed her to come home right now. And just like you said, it was good for you to be able to come home, be with your mom, be in the hospital where your mom worked so that you could get the care that you needed, especially since you had not gotten that care previously. And
Hmm.
just like you said, everybody rallying around you and making sure that you were looked after and taken care of. So I think that was really special. I love that. Another thing I love that you said was you were talking about the prayer that you had about who your daughter was going to be. I think that is so profound because that means you were extremely intentional, like in your thought process of like, it was almost like you had an epiphany of like, I was so scared for this X amount of weeks or months of my pregnancy, but now that I know it's real,
Hmm.
you start praising God and like, listen, God, I got things we need to talk about.
Right.
And so I love that you had that, you set that intention for your life, but also for your daughter and who she was going to be. And I really like that. Um, and just thinking about the fact that he was like, the fact that he wasn't speaking to you for a long period of time, but you continued to keep him up to date on like the milestones and like encouraging her to have a relationship with him in spite of the fact that he wasn't returning that love back. I think that speaks to a lot of who moms try to be. Not all, I'm not going to say all, but many moms do try to go that extra mile to say, listen, it didn't work out between he and I. However, I want you to have the dad in your life that you deserve to have.
Hmm.
So I'm going to make that space for you to be able to have that. And I feel like you did that in so many different ways. So I commend you for that, especially in spite of the fact that he kept, pulling away and stuff like that. You also spoke about the fact that your own father stuff you didn't want to impose on her. So let's talk about the cycle of fatherlessness a little bit.
Yeah. So my father wasn't in my life. And when I was growing up, I had wanted to be a daddy's girl. I want to say, like, more than anything else. I had imagined what my father would be like, what a relationship with him would be like, and all of that. And because I didn't know what he looked like, I'd always imagine that people who look similar to me in on shows or in magazines could possibly be him. Like, oh, maybe this model from the Jet magazine is my dad. I don't know. So it's like because I had that dynamic of not having my father in my life, I never wanted my daughter to experience this. I didn't. And I think also just because of the kind of relationship that I had with my parents, this probably informed why I didn't want to be a mom to begin with. I was just like, yeah, I don't really think I want this responsibility. Now that I'm thinking about it out loud, I really think that they're connected. But what's hard for me to accept is that the cycle did not stop with me, even though I wanted it to. And so my father not being in my life, me being a fatherless daughter, and then my daughter being a fatherless daughter as well, it it was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow that I was not able to change that for her. However, what I tried to do was give her the best possible experience through me that I could, because I understood firsthand like what it was like to be fatherless and some of the thoughts that come up, some of the decisions that we make as a result of that, and all of that. I tried to be as open as I could with my daughter about my experiences, about, like teaching her about her feelings, how to regulate her feelings, the fact that this was a safe space for her to share, answering questions that she had and whatnot, and all of the things, and just like creating a village around her so that she would feel like insulated with love. And doing all of that, obviously this was a way for me to try to make up for what she lacked in a father. And some of it worked and some of it didn't, if I'm honest. My daughter goes to therapy. She talks about how the lack of relationship with her father makes her feel. Sometimes the conversations that she has with her therapist are stuff that I don't get to hear. So I'm not really sure all of the time how deeply she feels about it. All I know is that the cycle did not stop with me, you know? And so it's something that I think about, but I also implore other people to really be aware of. When you have had experiences that really shaped who you are and maybe sometimes stunted your growth for a long time, thinking about how not to put your children in that situation should honestly be your top priority. And though it didn't happen for me, I really just pray that more people are more cognizant of like who they're with, what this person is like, and whether or not this is the best partner for the life that you say you want. Because one of the things that I didn't connect when my daughter's father and I were dating was his parenting relationship with his son. And though I saw it firsthand, it didn't click to me that if he was this kind of parent to his son, then this is exactly what I should expect to experience if I have a child with him. And the first day that I met his son, he brought his little 2-year-old, chubby, beautiful, like braided brown boy into the house. And immediately, like 15 minutes later, left us both there alone to go and have a good time and drink at the bar down the street with his friends, and did not come back till the next morning. And I was waiting there, like, okay, your dad's gonna be coming home soon. And mind you, I'm 24. Like, this is my first experience with like a small child. I don't know this child from nowhere. Like, this child doesn't know me. You know how children are when people they don't know. And it was just me trying to, let this child know that I was safe to be with, that it was gonna be okay. Okay, let's find something to eat. Let's like, find some activities to do and whatnot. And really, trying to soothe this child to sleep and, whatnot until their father came. And all night, like I kept this child on my chest, just like rubbing his back and whatnot, so that he would be calm and stay sleeping all night. But the entire time in the back of my mind, I'm like, how could you do this? Like, how could you really leave me with your son to go gallivanting the streets? And this is the first time that we're meeting each other. But that did not click for me in terms of thinking like this is not somebody that I also want to have a child with. It was just like this was a blip in the myriad of experiences that I had with him, both good and bad. And it wasn't something that came to mind when I thought about like what a future with him could be. So I just, if there's anything that I would say, it would be to really pay attention to the people that you're in relationship with and how their relationships are formed with other people around you, because that is a very good indication of what to expect when they're dealing with you, or if you have a child with them in the future. Because, girl, I did not pay attention.
You said, girl. Yeah, I love that tip. Listen, y'all, did you hear? She said, pay attention to how they treat their children before yours. Okay. Because sometimes we are given the signs, and just like you said, we don't pay it attention, or we're young and immature and we kind of like really don't know, naive, all those things, you know. And so I do think that that's really important to pay attention to what you see. I could get so many women on this podcast to talk about the fact that they saw those signs prior to the relationship that they have with their child's father now, but didn't pay attention to it because, hey, I'm in it now, right? And he's not going to do to me what he did to her because we're actually together in a relationship. I could get a number of people on here.
I bet you could.
So that's definitely a tip that people, I hope you're listening, y'all. But let's talk about how your the cycle of fatherlessness has transformed into what you do now for women.
Yeah. So thank you for that segue. So now I am a relationship engagement strategist. I am the founder of Daughter Heal, and we are an organization that works with women with fractured father relationships to teach them how to process the pain of not having their father there and to learn new relational skills. What I had to learn myself several years ago is that my father's absence really created a lot of coping and defense mechanisms that I took with me into relationships. And a lot of it was me thinking that I needed to prove my worth, me thinking that um, I wasn't deserving of really amazing relationships, and that whatever experience I was having with people was as good as it got. And none of that was true. I had blamed myself for my father not being there. And so I thought that I just wasn't worthy of good things. And that wasn't true either. So I had to do a lot of unlearning of what I had learned growing up, especially since I just wasn't equipped to deal with, the dynamic between my father and my mother and I. And so now our organization and the work that I do centers around women who have similar experiences to mine, who want to understand how the lack of relationship with their dad has affected them both personally and in relationships with others. And so we create community, we curate resources and events for them. And ultimately, what I want them to learn is that they have always been worthy. Their worth is not determined by the person who left or who decided not to stay. There is no indictment against their character because their father wasn't around. And so they can walk in the truth of them being a child of God and them being worthy of good things. And accept what this love can be like for them. So we really just teach them how to start living authentically and loving fully, and really embracing the desire that has always been there and what that could possibly look like for their life.
I love that. And you guys, listen, she is amazing at what she does, and you just need to check her out. So, Bernadette, tell the people where they can find you on social media.
Of course. So you can find me on Instagram at Bernadette N. Jackson. So that's BERNADETTEN JACKSON. You can follow me there. You can slide into my DMs. My DMs are always open for questions and conversation. I love engaging with you guys. And I also have a YouTube channel as well, but all of the links to everything is on my Instagram page. So if you follow me there, then you'll be able to catch me everywhere else.
And don't worry, people, if you didn't catch it all, the information will be in the show notes so that you don't lose contact with Miss Bernadette, because like I said, she is a powerhouse in what she does. So I just want to thank her so much for being a guest on my podcast. Thank you.
No problem. It was great being here.
And before we go, I'm going to pray us out of here, and then we're going to say our goodbyes. So, Father God, thank you so much for this opportunity of having my sis, my praying partner, my sis in Christ, my accountability partner, to be able to be on my podcast. Just having all of the women that are surrounding me to be a part of this journey with me has been such a pleasure and has been such a learning experience along the way as well. And I just thank you for every single moment that you allow me to hear all these different stories, because it gives me so many different new perspectives, so many different ways to see life other than the way that I saw it. So I just thank you. I thank you for this opportunity. I just want to cover right now Bernadette and her family. I ask that you guide them, protect them, cover them, and keep them. I ask that you bless them in all the ways that they need to be blessed, and then just to bless them along this continued journey, because we don't know what the co-parenting journey will look like for them moving forward, or for her daughter. I just ask that you give Bernadette, as well as her daughter, the stamina to withhold the things that she needs to be a part of, and the discernment to know when to pull away. Father God, I just ask again that you cover them, protect them, guide them, keep them. And I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you again, sis, so much.
Yes, it was really great having this conversation with you. I can't wait to see more of the podcast. So thank you so much. Love you.
Thank you. And we will be talking after this, because like I said, our stories are when you were talking, I was like, we gotta talk about that. So interesting that you're with people for so long and then you don't share these background stories, because I think sometimes you don't think they're relevant, right? You're just like, we're friends, we've connected on a different level, we talk about parenting, but we never talk about like that. So thank you again. I'm glad I got to be the special person that received all of this amazing story.
Listen, because this is the first time I've shared this publicly. So yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, tune in for the next episode. I will see you then. God bless.